最近咧，我探一位嘅病人啊，咁開始嘅時候，佢其實同我有少少親近，因為佢係新加坡人，咁嚟咗香港做嘢啦。開始見佢嘅時候咧，佢係好精靈嘅，因為佢只係入醫院咧打下化療嘅啫嘛。咁咧，佢係比起其他嘅病人咧，喺呢一個寧養病房入邊咧，係精靈。所謂嘅精靈，佢可以自己行出行入啊，去廁所啊，去外邊買杯咖啡啊咁。但係咧，轉個頭，佢話出院啦，再見翻佢咧，奇怪，瞓喺嗰度嘅好熟面口喎，係佢嚟㗎，原來係做緊呢個化療嘅過程中咧中咗風啊！咁我最近見到唔係佢單一位，有另外一位，淨係仲年輕過我41歲嘅啫，咁所以你可以好做緊啊，個心就揦緊㗎啦。睇到佢咁樣情況嘅時候，就好願意或者好想睇下佢依家如何啊！當我親近佢嘅時候咧，佢就話：你麻煩你啊，快啲叫我個仔去食飯啦，叫我嘅工人姐姐咧帶佢去食。佢話咧：我個仔我喺邊啊？因為見唔到阿仔嘛，佢話阿仔就喺我身邊啫嘛。所以你睇到佢中風之後咧，有一啲嘅錯亂咁一問之下咧，其實仔仔已經被媽媽啊屋企人咧帶翻去新加坡㗎啦咁所以探完佢第一次之後到今日咧，差唔多1個禮拜，我可以話每一日我都會掛住佢只可以話我冇辦法日日都去到佢床邊為係送上一個祝福。所以點解佛教院士部要開展呢？第一點就係不忍眾生苦，真係不忍眾生苦。有時候你睇身邊嘅人，咦係啊，好苦啊，好辛苦啊，你去醫院睇下，仲辛苦過你。你話你冇力啊，佢真係瞓喺度食飯都冇力，係嘛？所以第一點就係不忍眾生苦。喺呢個梵網經入邊我哋睇到有一句説話就係八福田中。乜嘢福田最大啊？探病福田最大。八福田中探病嘅福田最大。所以佛陀佢自己親身去照顧病咗嘅佢嘅徒弟，然後佢就講咗呢一句説話。點解探病嘅福田最大咧？因為呢個係一個悲田。媽媽爸爸係我哋嘅恩田，要報恩係咪啊？咁所以探病係一個悲田，可以提起我哋呢個悲心。中心呢一個佛教院士部咧我一定要提一提呢度我哋好感恩陳庭偉基金嘅支持，令到我哋咧可以更加穩固咁樣去發展。我哋好感恩 Doreen 嘅 Project Manager 喺呢度，我哋掌聲感恩佢好唔好啊？好感恩因為有呢一個支持咧，我哋其實係有勇氣去招募更多人，甚至去敲門醫院嘅門，令到我哋可以繼續嘅關顧香港嘅有需要嘅人。呢一個佛教院士部嘅發展咧，好感恩瑪麗醫院嘅周醫生，同埋一位我哋中心前總幹事溫居士佢牽嗰個穿針引線咧就又遇到顯揚法師，咁就成立咗大覺福行中心。而嗰個前因緣咧，就因為醫院冇佛教嘅呢一個團隊正式咧去開展呢個關懷服務周醫生就希望我哋開展，所以你要開展一定要喺香港有一個正式註冊嘅中心，就係咁樣嘅情況。所以09年去到依家咧，我哋已經開咗20屆嘅課程㗎啦。從幾位嘅心靈大師去到依家有將近160位，係定期喺12間嘅醫院去探訪啲病人。另外咧就係我哋2011年咧就正式開展呢一個佛教院士部嘅 office 啦。去到今日其實已經關顧咁多嘅醫院，同埋時時咧都會收到一個 referral 喺我哋12間之外嘅其他嘅醫院咧，只要有需要，家屬有需要，或者係護士佢哋覺得有需要我哋嘅關顧佢哋都會 call 我哋。除咗關懷之外咧，我哋都做一啲嘅工作坊因為教育係必須要去帶出嚟嘅， 生死我哋一般上好就忌去講，係咪啊？所以咧，我哋透過工作坊講一啲生死嘅 topic 啦，甚至係做一啲嘅減壓啊，可以調身心靈嘅一啲工作坊。再嚟就係院士究竟係乜嘢咧？我哋英文叫做 Buddhist chaplain 嚇，其實同其他基督教嘅院牧、天主教嘅牧靈係平起平坐㗎，所以對院士嘅要求好高啲㗎嚇。拍住我哋嘅心靈大師咧，我哋係去醫院咧關懷啲病人，侍奉佢哋嘅心靈，啲病人嘅心靈。咁點樣做咧？你有冇興趣知㗎？嚇，咁係陪伴佢哋咯，陪伴啲病人、屋企人。屋企人係最被忽略嘅一群，聆聽佢哋咯，聽下佢哋嘅心聲，唔好一味嚟講。我哋識好多佛學嘅嘢，咁咩念佛啦，你懺悔啦，係咪咁啊？你誦經啦，一般上我哋會係咁樣做噶嘛。但係我哋嘗試去聆聽佢哋心中嘅一啲結，或者佢想要表達嘅嘢，我哋要有呢個技巧咧，慢慢引導翻佢講出嚟。咁其實係感恩嘅地方就係好多時候咧，佢對於我哋一個陌生人啊，佢可以噼哩啪啦講晒。哇！你知唔知呢一個秘密咧？我從來未同任何人講㗎。講完咧好舒服啊。反而對於屋企人咧，佢哋好難開口，唔知從何講起。陣間咧會再舉一啲嘅例子嗬。咁除咗呢個之外咧，我哋會做臨終嘅關懷，呢個只係其中嘅一項嚇。仲有俾信仰嘅安撫啦。咁我哋關懷嘅對象咧，最尾咧就係乜嘢？有年紀輕輕嘅，去到可能啱啱出世嘅呢個嬰兒，幾日大嘅啫，去到年老嘅、病重嘅、好輕嘅或者 rehab 緊嘅、康復緊嘅。除咗病人之外，仲要家屬啦、醫護人員。大家都知醫護人員都壓力好重、好爆煲啊，係咪啊？咁所以近年咧，當我哋開呢個減壓工作坊，好多醫護人員咧都好願意參加嘅。咁所以我哋可以睇到咧，其實咁樣好簡單嘅一個介紹，佛教院士部咧，其實我哋嘗試去帶出一個五全嘅照顧。第一個就係全人啦，係嘛？身心靈，一個病人點樣可以照顧佢嘅身心靈咧？再嚟就係佢嘅屋企人啦。好多時候病人已經回應唔到噶啦。反而就係屋企人，佢冇辦法接受嘅時候咧，我哋就必須要去照顧呢個屋企人。最近咧有一位我哋探開嘅，我叫佢黃伯伯啦。當佢入醫院嘅時候咧，係已經係末期嘅肺癌噶啦。我記得佢一入院咧，第一日見到我咧，見到師傅好開心，因為佢係個佛教徒嚟嘅。佢就話：我要翻屋企，我好希望翻屋企。自始至終講好多次同埋佢有講乜嘢咧？就係、醫生同佢講：你呢個手咧已經係嗰啲癌細胞咧蠶食到咧，你依家輕輕用力咧就斷噶啦。佢話：可能我個命咧斷快過佢嘅，聽唔聽到呢個意思啊？我希望快啲。我嘅太太早3個月走咗，我想叫佢等我㗎，但係佢又笑一笑，苦笑啊！呢個係。就係話，我諗佢都好難等我嘅咁所以喺呢個過程中，除咗關懷呢個病人之外，我哋關懷佢個屋企人佢屋企人，仲有就係一個全程嘅關顧，直到去離開嗰一晚，已經係凌晨幾點1點幾㗎啦。我哋依然去到佢嘅床邊，希望可以送佢一程。咁所以。我哋呢個團隊咧，除咗出家人啦，有院士，有心靈大師啦，我哋整個團隊互相保衞，唔好淨係師傅去，師傅都會頂唔順，係咪啊？師傅都要瞓覺要休息咁有時就揾其他在家嘅院士去啦。有時咧又會揾心靈大師幫下手嘅咁互相保衞咧，就唔會咁容易 burn out 我哋屋企人照顧病人都要記住呢一樣嘢，所以 Venerable。我哋就係去到依家呢個佛教院士部就係咁樣嘅發展。我睇到你寫好多嘢喎，唔知你有冇咩回應咧？Do you have any feedback?
Well, thank you very much, Venerable. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you and your team and your whole group, your wider group, for the wonderful work that you're doing. I have not heard of any hospice team in the world that has 160 people ready to participate in the hospitals. I think it's marvelous. So I think that your teacher and you and all of your Dharma brothers and sisters have done a wonderful job. So I thank you, and I really appreciate what all of you are doing. So I like the way that you mention compassion and loving kindness as the sort of touchstones of hospice chaplaincy. And I totally agree that loving kindness and compassion are the keys to a happy passing, or a less difficult passing, shall we say. I'm sure it's never easy, but with loving kindness and compassion on the part of everyone involved, both the caregivers, the patients, their families, and the hospital personnel, it will make everything much easier for everyone, right? And this is where some of the difficulties emerge, is from the sort of disputes among the family, differences about the quality of the health care, which choices to make in terms of treatment. And sometimes these conflicts can really be disturbing to everyone. So with loving kindness and compassion, I think we can head that off and prevent a lot of difficulties that can be disturbing to the person in their onward journey, shall we say. So then it occurred to me that in order to develop loving kindness and compassion, we need to meditate on suffering. And this, just like death, suffering is a topic that most people don't want to think about. It's a hard one, right? We think, well, we want to live a happy life. Why should we think about suffering? But in the end, I think that meditation on suffering is absolutely necessary in order to develop a sincere loving kindness and compassion. We can say these words. You know, we all say these words. It's even in the newspaper, and even the politicians sometimes use these words, but sometimes our actions don't follow sincerely from our words. So I think we all need more practice in generating loving kindness and compassion. So how do we do that? And I think about going to visit the HIV/AIDS patients in Cambodia. Now, you can hardly imagine a more difficult situation than that. The hospitals there bear no resemblance to the hospitals in Hong Kong. It's basically just a metal bed in huge wards, the temperatures around 90, no doctors or nurses in sight, no drinking water dispensers, nothing. And the people have one little sheet. Most of them are terribly lonely because they contracted HIV/AIDS, whatever the cause may be, most of their families have rejected them. So this is a great sadness. In addition to the feelings of guilt and regret that the patients might feel, of course, we don't know the cause. They may have contracted it from a transfusion. We cannot know. We don't need to know, really, because the condition is the same. But the fact that many of them are suffering from deep regrets, and even if they lived a very pure life, they still regret getting sick and causing trouble to their families. And here's in a country where the families are almost all very poor, apart from a few millionaires who are getting rich by selling off the country's forests and so forth. Most people are very, very poor, so their healthcare options are few. When we think about these things, and sometimes it's good to think of the most extreme examples, because it helps us to generate loving kindness and compassion from a deep place. It's not sometimes pleasant to think about suffering in this way, but I think it's very important. So, like one of my friends is a doctor and she goes to Uganda every year. She's a pediatrician, takes care of the newborn babies. So she goes as a volunteer for 1 month every year and teaches in the hospitals, this prenatal care, neonatal care they call it. So it's really tough. The hospital has no equipment. They have very dedicated doctors and nurses, but they don't have the equipment to work with. They don't have the medicines. So they develop certain programs like they call koala care, where the women nurse the babies, they put them to their breast and put them in a little sling, and then they're able to discharge the mothers early because baby's happy, mother's happy, and then that frees up another hospital bed. But when we think about it, you know, the quality of care, how poor it is for these poor mothers and the child, then we generate a deep feeling of compassion. So last, I really appreciate your idea of listening to their stories. Oh, it's not our place to tell them at this point how to live their lives or even how to die, but to listen to their stories and help them feel that their life has been worthwhile and meaningful and worth listening to. It's great. Thank you.
好，非常好啊！感恩Venerable 嘅補充啊嚇。咁可能我哋就可以進入第二個 part 咧，其實就係臨終時候咧最重要嘅係乜嘢？咁最近咧我去探一位老人家，咁其實我哋嘅團隊都探咗一段時間。第一次有個師傅過去咧，佢識得叫師傅，咁啊傾兩句之後，師傅打教我，哇！佢問咗呢句説話，我一下子唔知點答，因為我真係唔係嗰個打教嘅角色。如果佢問你，你點答啊？我哋好習慣念佛啦，係咪？念觀音菩薩啦。咁當我了解佢，其實佢都係信拜觀音、侍奉虛觀音，佢又識得念喎，朝念觀世音、晚念觀世音、念念觀世音等等等等。我哋應該去學下呢一句啊！呢一個病人佢話打救我嘅時候，唔好意思，嗰一刻咧，我真係唔知點樣去回應。所以作為一個我哋喺醫院關懷嘅咧，我哋要看到、見到啊，看到要聽到、要感受到病人佢係有乜嘢需要，而唔係一味我想同你講乜嘢，我傳授俾你啦呢一招咁樣嚇，唔係。而係要看到、要聽到、要感受到，究竟佢呢一刻嘅心情，嗰一刻佢其實係好慌張、好焦慮。佢識同你講就好咧，佢唔識同你講嘅時候咧，佢喺一味喺度扯氣嘅時候，係咪啊？我哋可唔可以去理解到咧？所以做喺關懷臨終嘅病人咧，第一點我想同大家分享。第二點咧。就係楊師傅喺《心寬》呢一本書嗰度講嘅，就係、是、佛教嘅心靈關懷係乜嘢咧？就係、是、讓呢一個臨終嘅人將一生最放唔低嘅事、最放不下嘅人，或者係最糾纏一生嘅仇恨啊，冤結解開之後坦然上路。一句講晒，但係容唔容易做啊？都唔容易啊！我印象好深刻，師傅咧。同師傅去探一位病人喺溫哥華嘅，呢一位60零歲嘅男人啦，咁佢好大男人㗎嘛，然後講嘢好大聲㗎，去到佢臨走嗰一晚，啲護士就同佢講話，佢尋晚發癲啊，佢除晒啲衫褲喺度唱歌咁樣喎。咁師傅再去嘅時候咧，再探佢咧，佢依然冇辦法安定落嚟。師傅又要去感受下究竟佢有乜嘢放唔低。原來佢去咗溫哥華之後咧，媽媽喺香港，媽媽要走啦，要死啦，佢唔肯翻嚟見媽媽最尾一面，連佢嘅太太同埋仔女要翻嚟，佢都阻止，卒之冇見到最尾一面啦。直到媽媽走咗，佢自己病到要走啦。呢一個悔恨嘅心啊，浮現喺個心入邊。好內疚， 咁所以佢喺佢臨終嘅時候咧，一直講對唔住，對唔住，請原諒我。咁啊，師傅點做啊？係啦，你懺悔啦，啊媽媽會原諒你噶啦，媽媽大人有大量。講完之後，OK，之後又再講翻喎，對唔住，我好懺悔啊咁。淨係語言上嘅呢個叫佢放低啊，叫佢懺悔啊、安心啊，冇用。所以師傅話：好，我哋係叫咩？好似古人咁啊，斟茶認錯，好嘛？嗱，依家斟咗3杯茶喺面前啦，依家你開始認錯啦。第一杯隱形嘅杯啊嚇，攞去俾阿太太，我對你唔住，請你原諒我。咁阿太太覺得好搞笑啊嚇，唔緊要啦，好啦，我接受你嘅認錯啦。第2杯俾啲仔女，第3杯俾阿媽。真係哭晒、喊晒。但係做完嗰個動作之後咧，佢接情飲落去，飲埋去。然之後咧，哇，翻到佢嘅聲，完全安心。所以我哋要知道呢一個病人究竟佢掛礙嘅係乜嘢，從嗰度落手，佢好幸福啊！遇到楊師傅。如果我哋唔識，身邊嘅人唔識嘅話，解唔到嘅話，咁佢唯有係帶住呢一個怨恨，或者呢一個未解嘅結離開。再嚟咧就係、其實4道大家都聽過，知唔知4道係乜嘢啊？係乜嘢啊？請講聲啊！道歉、道愛、道謝，仲有咧道別，係啦，呢4樣嘢。佢哋話仲有一個叫道良，我估係原諒嘅良啦。但係其實一般上我已經係包括咗喺道歉嗰度嘅。呢4道咧，其實有啲人可能未聽過。我哋喺關懷嘅過程中啊，我哋時時都會 apply 嘅。即使呢一個病人咧，佢已經講嘢，你已經聽唔到佢講乜嘢，佢好努力想表達自己，但係佢就係、你唔明就係唔明。好啦，攞支筆，攞張紙俾佢，佢畫嚟畫去都係寫唔到一個字，咁點算呢？我哋就要從佢屋企人嗰度落手啦，去了解究竟屋企人呢個病人佢有乜嘢掛礙，掛住乜嘢，咁我哋就要從嗰度去探討。再嚟咧呢一個預設照顧計劃，生命嘅回顧咧，其實係好重要嘅就係同呢一個病人咧做一次嘅自從以前到依家佢一生人究竟做咗啲乜嘢？佢如果做得好嘅，你讚佢；佢就做得唔啱嘅，我哋引導佢去懺悔、去道歉。再嚟就係屋企人咧，可以從呢一個生命回顧嗰度咧讚歎佢，你做得好好啦，你嘅工作圓滿啦，我哋支持你。所以呢個道別咧，唔係叫佢你上路啦，你好走啦，唔係講呢啲，而係話你做得圓滿啦，你依家要為你好好打算。把握好你自己，無論你做乜嘢嘅決定咧，我哋支持你嘅。但係有時候咧，屋企人或者病人咧，大家你試唔好講嗰樣嘢住，係咪？我仲要醫，咁我哋咪兩手準備咯。呢個好好用㗎，我係學咗楊師傅嗰種方法嚇。佢話兩手準備，即使呢個人已經睇佢真係唔得啦，佢唔肯接受。咁如果可以嘅話，你快啲努力啊！如果你可以好嘅話，屋企人隨時願意照顧你。但係又慢慢引導佢接受將要死亡嘅呢一個事實。如果呢個身體實在冇辦法再轉彎嘅時候，我哋願意去一個光明嘅地方，就係咁樣。好啦，講到往生嗰度，從佛教嘅角度咧，我哋係講往生。所以往下一期嘅生命，咁個意義好大啊，啱唔啱啊？所以點解佛教好注重臨終嗰一刻同佢嘅一個互動或者係説法？當然啦，臨終有3樣嘢可以決定我哋下一世。第一個係隨重，聽過啊？隨我哋一生做嘅重業，殺父殺母嗰啲重唔重啊？5逆罪其一啊，其二啊，好重啊！所以佢一走咧。 我哋相信佢好快去噶啦。但係如果你係喺修行上有好大嘅功夫嘅話，呢個都係重喎，善業嘅重業，咁你就會好快嘅超升噶啦。我祝福大家嗬。所以你第二咧就係除習氣，除我哋嘅習氣。所以有時候我見到啲病人咧，哇好平穩嘅，問一問之後咧知道一生人善良，時時每一日咧仲經為佢嘅功課。你睇呢一個人走嘅時候好平穩，唔會有太多嘅掛礙。第三就係除我哋嘅意念啦，就係喺呢個臨終嘅時候咧，究竟呢一個人佢可唔可以有呢個福氣，屋企人喺身邊支援佢，或者係提醒佢，即使呢個人賺唔落噶啦，佢冇顧家嘅喎，佢將個屋企咧交俾媽媽去打理，佢時時出去玩同朋友飲茶啊，去旅行啊，唔會帶埋我哋嘅。讚咩啊？有咩好讚啊？你可以了解多啲之後咧，原來佢口業一流嘅，唔會講人是非嘅。咁從呢度去讚歎佢咯。所以我哋要好細心，去了解一個人嘅佢嘅過去。我諗呢度我就舉一個牛棚嘅故事啊，喺一個牛欄入邊啊，每一日早上咧嗰個照顧牛欄嘅人咧就會打開個牛欄門啊，咁咧一般上咧呢一個好大隻嗰個大阿哥咧就會衝出去噶啦，個個都要讓路。呢一個其實講緊就係重業啊。第一個首當其衝，第二個係咩咧？就係好精靈嘅。你一睇到個門打開啊，佢就知道攝位啊、攝罅啊咁樣行出去。呢個就係隨業。我哋習慣咗做嗰樣嘢嘅，當然希望係個善業啦。第三個咧就係臨死個業啦，臨死嘅最尾臨死嘅時候，就係呢一隻牛咧係咩啊？企喺個門邊嘅，推下推咗出去。第四個咧就係我哋已經做開，可能做過一次嘅啫，唔係好為意嘅啫。可能喺超級市場唔覺意攞咗啲嘢做過一次，收藏喺我哋嘅心田中。咁呢一刻咧就浮現咗啦，就好似喺個牛欄嗰度咧，有隻好瘦好弱嘅，被人推下咧，從後邊就推到去前邊，就做咗決定咗呢一個人最尾嗰一年。所以一個人臨終嘅時候咧，呢一年咧會決定佢下一世要嘅狀態。呢度就講咗啦，相信前世、今生、來世，生命咧輪轉不息。臨終嘅時候嘅心靈狀態啊、精神嘅狀態啊、情緒嘅狀態，都會決定佢來生開始嘅狀態。你接唔接受啊？相唔相信啊？所以我哋要好留意啊！就係臨終嘅時候陪伴屋企人啊、朋友，我哋盡量要提起佢嘅正念，甚至係要讚歎佢、肯定佢。
The idea of the patient who's having difficulty dealing with death, with the reality of death, is really something we need to think about. And of course, it doesn't just unfold at that last moment. There's a whole path leading up to it. So we find now today many cases of Alzheimer's and dementia. I guess these are two different kinds of ailments, but it seems to be very common, very prevalent. So can everyone understand me? Oh, good, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't speak Cantonese. Oh,
you can speak Mandarin.
Oh, only when necessary. The dementia idea, I think Dharma practice can be very helpful. So one of my friends started 6 hospices in Honolulu, one of them a Buddhist hospice. And sometimes I would visit these hospices. They were small, like a home. She would buy a home and put 6 patients in. And it turned out to be cheaper than having a full-time caregiver. And once when I went in, I heard a woman screaming, and she was shouting very bad language. It was quite shocking. And I asked my friend, who's both a professor of psychology and a registered nurse, and she said it's really quite common that when people are afflicted by dementia, they go through a lot of mental upset. And this can take many forms. Often they get very angry and sometimes even shouting terrible things, even to their loved ones. So this really shocked me. I hadn't encountered that before. But then, when my own father got old, I noticed some days he was fine when I would talk to him on the phone, but other days he would get really mean. Oh, and I felt so sad. I didn't say anything to upset him, but suddenly he would just start saying really sort of almost cruel things. So when I asked my friend, she said, "Oh no, that's normal. When people get dementia, it's very common that they say rude and nasty things." So this, to me, was a kind of wake-up call that as Dharma practitioners, we have the opportunity to purify our minds and bring our minds under control. First of all, understand our minds, and then also learn how to tame them so that we won't go out of control at the end of life. I think it's very important, because if we're not in control of our mind and we're just shouting, whether "save me" or shouting something very rude, it's not a good state of mind in which to make the transition, right? So Dharma practice really comes in handy. Now this is something that we can control. We as the practitioner have the opportunity to develop our minds and to try to forestall or prevent some of this kind of bad behavior. Alzheimer's would be a different case, and I don't think that we have enough evidence to know exactly whether or not meditation practice can prevent or maybe make Alzheimer's less serious. That would be an interesting study. Maybe some of our physician friends can take this up, because I've seen research on meditation and different like gang warfare and all kinds of problems, but I haven't seen any studies on Alzheimer's and meditation. So let's hope that someone takes that up. The idea of taking care of unfinished business is a good one. And here I know that in Tibetan society, often the people, as they get old, start to give away all their possessions, so that at the time of death, they won't have these kinds of attachments and clinging to their wealth and property. I know one case where the son of the one father gave away everything he had, and then the son was saying, "But what about me?" So maybe we have to think about that too. We could leave something to the children, but just so that they'll be happy. But it sounds like a great idea to me to have your mind uncluttered by attachments to property and so forth. Even my neighbor gave away her dog. Wow, she was so attached to this dog. And so one day I said, "Well, where's his name was what's that writer? A name for a famous writer, Sartre or something." Yeah, so Camus, that was it, Camus. Okay, so I said, "Where is Camus?" And she got suddenly very sad and said, "Well, because I have cancer, I know that I'm not going to be here long. And I wanted to make sure that Camus had a good home before I leave. But I feel so sad," she said. But I appreciate it. I tried to encourage her, and like you say, offer words of encouragement, that she did something very good in making sure that her dog had a good home before she had to leave him. So that was actually quite lovely. The idea of the life flashback. Many people have experienced this at the moment of death. Even I had the experience when I was a little kid, my brother and I went out swimming surfing, actually, in a storm warning. This was in California. And I think he was about 10 and I was about 11. So we were just little critters, you know? But we were very strong swimmers. But this storm was terrific. It was huge. And we didn't see the sign that there was a storm warning. So we went out. And suddenly the waves kept coming in, bigger and bigger. We lost our boards on the first wave, and then we had to dive under the wave, and each one was bigger than the last. It was very scary. So when we finally got out, we were about almost a kilometer offshore in the ocean, little kids, and we were trying to cling to the seaweed and everything, and of course that was hopeless. But we made friends with each other because you know how little kids squabble. And so we made friends with each other and said we were sorry. And I remember having my life flash before me at that time. Yeah, even as a little child. So you can imagine, I had done some very naughty things already. But not as bad as my brother. And probably also not some of the bad things that we might do as an adult. So, but even so, it was a really important experience because I saw how, in the end, whether we believe in karma or rebirth or not, we still have to account for our actions in this life. Think about it, you know. Sometimes I've heard one American scholar say that in the end, karma may be about regretting our actions. Something to think about, you know, because at the moment of death, it's very likely that we will think about the mistakes that we've made. And so I think we want to do lots of good deeds to offset, you know, the balance. If we've done lots of good things, as you say, we can think back over all of those good deeds and it will make our heart happy. And so that's very important. Yeah, appreciate whatever good things we have done. So that means that we need to do more good things, right? Don't take a chance. Yeah, we don't want to be deficient. We should have an extra good deeds so that we'll feel happy about it at the last moment. So this is really great. And then I agree with you completely that we have these things at the last moment. In fact, we have the meritorious deeds that we have created. That's sort of the wholesome deeds. And then we also have our habit energy. So in addition to all the good deeds that we may have done, sometimes we have habits that are not so healthy. We might be in the habit of getting upset when we don't get what we want. It's so human, right? We can all be very nice as long as everything goes our way. But the minute things don't go our way, then we can get tense and angry even. So we need to get rid of our bad habits. I think that's really important. I remember when I turned 40, I thought one day, okay, now I have to try really hard to get rid of all my bad habits. Because if I don't, it's going to be really hard to change those as you get older. You know, so I've made a strong determination to try to get rid of those bad habits. And then third, the thought at the moment of death. Now that's really important too. And that requires a lot of practice. That sort of extra accumulation of good deeds and good thoughts. Because even if we've lived a very good life, at the last moment, you know, if we're not careful, we could generate an unfortunate mind state. And that then would be the proximate cause of whatever comes after. So we do have to be very careful to be able to cultivate that moment-to-moment awareness. So at that very last moment, to be completely mindful. Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much。咁頭先阿 Variable 講啦即係如果可以再生我哋自己已經決定我要寫呢樣寫嗰樣，咁係最好噶啦去到你真係想已經講唔到嘢，屋企人就話喺你個床前，好似《地藏經》嗰度講就同佢大聲講話，我要幫你做一個供養布施你話佢肯唔肯啊？可能佢喺度講唔到嘢，但係好嬲，唔肯你做因為佢好中意嘛嗰樣嘢所以有一個病人，佢有好多靚衫，因為佢只係20零歲嘅啫，佢好多靚衫都未着嘅，好多高踭鞋未着嘅。咁我鼓勵佢媽媽啦，不如你可以趁佢依家快啲同佢做下啲功德，同呢個社會結個善緣，做唔做到啊？佢話媽媽梗係唔得啦，好驚佢陣間有啲執着咧佢就會起呢一個親恨嘅心我諗我會跳啦，講快少少呢度啦，《地藏經》入邊咧講嘅就係業道論對，未定輕重或難捨受，或不得遇。有冇睇過呢一句咁即係話，哇！佢求生不得，求死不能嘅時候點算咧？屋企人其實可以同佢呢個我哋陣間睇我哋可以同佢做好多嘢。頭先 Variable 已經講咗啦可以同佢寫一啲可愛之物啦，甚至喺《地藏經》入邊有講嘅俾大家一個參考。讀經啦，可以供養呢個經像啦，做呢個佛菩薩嘅像啦，甚至係支持建呢一個建寺建塔燃油燈呢個大家翻去睇會睇到噶啦。另外咧就係臨終嘅時候最忌係乜嘢咧？知唔知最忌啊？第一，屋企人喺山邊做咩身邊喊少少得唔得？我哋係人嚟嘅喎，流眼淚都唔得，唔好咁。我哋係人嚟嘅，一定有情緒，流少少眼淚 OK 嘅但係你喊到咧又毛又嗰啲咧，有啲人嘅傳統係咁噶咁嗰個就唔好啦另外咧就係喺佢身邊咧有拗撬你個遺囑未寫清楚你嘅財產未分清楚好似頭先話咁我咧你送晒啦，咁我點算咁所以再嚟咧就係好急咁樣就要搬動個遺體，呢個人都未走，甚至啱啱走，個體温仲有嘅，係咪佢已經好急，洗衫照換衫沐浴咁樣呢個對佢咧就唔係咁好嘅，你哋信我因為點解個意識咧神識咧啱啱離開，我哋讓佢咧平穩一陣，可以嘅話咧喺依家我哋接觸開嘅公立醫院啦 ，maximum 我哋要求咧可唔可以2個鐘俾我哋咧陪下呢一個病人，有啲可以情商到咧如果你係半夜3更走嗰啲，可能4個鐘、5個鐘咁都可以嘅，8個鐘得唔得？真係好難㗎好啦，咁臨終嘅時候，我哋要注意嘅嘢，頭先講咗啦，忌嘅嘢啦甚至要適合做嘅嘢，其實係可以大家盡量咧為呢個屋企人去做嘅咁當然我唔知喺藏傳嘅呢個佛教咧，有冇一啲嘢其實係一個人咧臨終嘅時候一定要做嘅咧
Yeah, actually, it's just as you say. Those points that you made, one is to not regret at the moment of death, to try to make the dying person feel comfortable. So not to quarrel at the bedside, not to move the body if possible. And of course, this raises a lot of issues with the authorities. And maybe there will come a time when the Buddhists will sort of start a petition or try to advocate for a more understanding approach at the hospitals that would allow the dying person to rest in state for a longer time. I think 4 hours would be, at a minimum, would be good. But then, or maybe this will make a case for dying at home. And the hospice programs often do sort of recommend in a way that the people might think about dying at home among their families in a more quiet situation, not hooked up to all of the machines with things, lights flashing and sounds going off, and then people in the next bed, and the whole hospital atmosphere. And it's not always so pleasant. So maybe it's something to think about. Buddhists might want to get more comfortable with the idea, which was the way most people died until recently, right? Just dying at home. It means accepting our own death, in which accepting that we're going to die and it's okay to die, and being home might be the best place. Also the idea of not moving the body, not disturbing the body, because we, according to the Tibetan texts, the consciousness may still be in or around the body for some time, even after the breath stops and the pulse stops. So the nurse, by law, is supposed to come in and take the vital signs, at least in California and many states in the United States. I don't know about Hong Kong, but they're supposed to come in and determine that the person is dead. So I guess if they just touch the body lightly, it wouldn't be too disturbing. But that's a question mark. We don't know. And of course it depends on the sensitivity of the nurse too. If she's kind, if she's gentle, or he. Nurses can be men also, right? Ooh, to watch my inclusive language. And so that's an important one. We definitely don't want to rough up the people, because that can be very disturbing at the last moment. So good to think about these things. But ultimately, the most important thing is to take care of the mind.
嗱，關於喺香港咧，的確嘅，即係呢一個病人如果已經係走咗啦，咁所謂走咗就係冇咗個呼吸啦，個肺功能係停咗嘅，心臟都係停咗嘅咁腦幹都死亡㗎啦。咁呢個就證實咗死亡。但係我哋話呢個意識佢仲會喺附近呢個因為我哋眼睛見唔到我哋唔係個個人有呢個能力，有啲人有。我哋曾經試過有一位嘅院士咧去探嘅時候咧，有個小朋友，佢嘅呢個病人嘅小朋友就伏咗喺嗰個床邊啦，唔識喊，因為媽媽已經真係去到最尾個 moments 啦直到媽媽離開啦，最尾一啖氣呼咗出嚟，佢先至擘高頭睇住個天花板嗰度咧，就一直喺度嗌媽媽啦咁就係咁，所以我哋好肯定呢個神識離開咗身體咧。我哋咪時時聽到佢會向上嘅，去到個天花嗰度睇一睇周圍咁呢一個從呢個小朋友其實佢反而教識我哋，真係唔好咁倉促另外咧就係當呢個病人走咗之後咧，我哋係有責任去 inform 去通知呢個護士嘅，話呢個人走咗啦。但係一般上我哋都會鼓勵個屋企人咧，先同護士講咗聲。如果佢真係走咗咧，我哋希望咧唔好咁快咧就喐佢俾我哋陪多佢一陣。咁佢哋其實基本上咧好願意去配合嘅。喺呢一段時間其實咧，姑娘佢哋會入嚟咧，真係 check 下個心電圖啦。如果佢真係走咗咧，我哋盡量咧就唔好喐佢住嘅。即使帶住個氧氣罩咁樣，我哋要好留意，因為有時咧係插住個喉甚至咧最近送一個 BB 至30幾週嘅黐晒啲膠布好多嘅呢啲喉管咁佢哋就建議話你要唔要抱住個 BB， 因為要掹喉停咗個呼吸機，咁俾佢抱住啦。咁都好俾佢感受下媽媽嘅愛喺媽媽嘅懷抱入邊離開，都係 good idea 嚟嘅。但係當佢未停嗰個呼吸機之前，就要搣呢啲膠紙掹嗰啲喉你話舒唔舒服我估咧佢未關呼吸機，佢已經走咗，睇唔到？甚至嗰一刻咧，佢會好親恨或者好痛苦馬上咧就話唔使，就由得佢咁就得啦所以個呼吸機一停咗之後咧，3分鐘BB 就離開咗。所以我哋要好謹慎，就係去到臨走呢一段時間點樣去安撫好呢個病人亡者 嚇，甚至係自己屋企人咧個心理啊、心態咧，其實係同個病人咧係互相通嘅。你緊張佢緊唔緊張啊？佢都緊張。你安穩嘅話咧，其實你帶出嚟個電波咧，都會令到佢安穩咯。係啦，咁我哋如果 Venerable 冇補充，我哋又落去下一個 issue 啊，嗬，呢一個都好重要，我都好想聽下 Venerable 嘅從藏傳嘅角度嘅。49日內咧會發生啲乜嘢事咧？同埋呢個親人可以做啲乜嘢？咁其實咧，大家如果有睇過呢個地藏經咧，好清楚嘅。我依家只可以從地藏經嗰邊。如果大家有其他嘅經文咧，有呢方面嘅資料咧，我都好想去了解呵。第一個咧就係喺呢個《忉利天宮神通品》第一嗰度啦，就講到呢個婆羅門女係咪啊？去到個海邊嗰度，然後呢位無毒鬼王咧就同佢講啦：嗱呢度啲眾生咧喺呢個水嗰度咧浮下嗰啲啱啱走嘅，但係過咗49日㗎啦。點解啊？因為第一最重要睇最尾嗰個 point 啊嚇，佢生時咧冇善因，然之後咧喺呢49日內先就係冇人祭呢個點讀啊？祭祀啊嚇，為佢做功德，為佢拔苦。所以點解喺佛教咧，我哋好重視49日。我記得楊師傅講咧，屋企人就覺得，哎呀，佢臨走嘅時候，我哋冇做到啲乜嘢。嚟得切，楊師傅話仲有49日嚇，所以係咪好有希望啊？所以喺呢49日內咧，我哋可以為我哋嘅屋企人咧做一啲嘅好嘢嘅，即係做乜嘢咧？喺利益存亡品啊第7嗰度就教我哋啦。生死之後呢一個屋企人走咗之後咧，77日內即係49日啦，廣做眾善。任何嘅好事，只要係好嘅，你做咗回向俾佢，可以令到呢個眾生咧，用永離惡趣，得生人天受勝妙樂，現在眷屬咧都可以利益無量嘅。咁呢度咧好似個字係表面上你做咗之後咧6分7分，我哋可以得幾多分啊？可以得6分係咪啊？如果你仲經回向俾呢個亡者，你自己可以得6分喎。咁其實我哋要睇得深層一啲，就喺呢49日內咧，好多人問呢個問題：我可以為我屋企人做啲乜嘢？係咪啊？咁我哋會鼓勵佢做好多嘢啦，誦經啦，仲有做善事啦、放生啦，係咪啊？護生啦、食素啦，好多嘢你可以去做嘅。咁其實做呢一樣嘢唔係淨係為咗個亡者啊。唔係淨係為咗佢，其實係我哋自己去度過呢一個哀傷期啊，係幫我哋自己療癒啊。所以喺49日內咧，我哋有啲人咧，每一日都去寺院誦經。開始嘅時候可能邊誦咧就邊喊，慢慢咧呢一個哀傷咧好返啦，可以慢慢度過啦。咁所以大家從呢個地藏經嗰度咧講得好清楚。你話有乜嘢好事咧？你自己知㗎啦，可以任何嘅好事做完咧，就回向俾呢個屋企人，甚至用佢嘅名義咧去做呢一個功德。如果佢留低嘅係好多財產，或者佢嘅衣物仲新淨嘅，仲用得着嘅，就送俾一啲需要嘅機構，令到佢咧可以同呢個社會繼續結一個善緣。咁樣清楚嚇？好。咁我哋又真係好想聽下 Venerable 咧，就係喺藏傳佛教49日內真正嚟講涉獵嘅唔係太多。究竟佢走咗，佢喺邊啊？好多人會問我，依家我屋企人喺邊啊？係咪去咗天上啊？唔知係咪道教咧就會批判㗎啦嘛？佢依家咧就喺上咗幾多層天，咁都還好喎。如果佢話佢去咗幾多層嘅地府，咁你係咪好擔心啊？係啦，但係從佛教，我未聽過楊師傅咁樣去講啊，去同你算一算先，你個親人去咗邊？但係至少，如果佢離開咗呢49日內，甚至更長嘅時間，我哋依然可以幫佢做啲嘢嘅。我哋又請 Venerable 睇下有咩嘅補充。
Well, this is a really big question. And of course, there are many theories, even among the Buddhists. There are differences of opinion about exactly what happens after the moment of death. So, according to the Theravada tradition, and also the Zen tradition in Japan, I'm not sure about Chan in China, but in Japan, the Zen practitioners, they say that the next existence will begin immediately after death. So this is one opinion. I even had a Burmese monk once told me in Thailand, oh, the idea of having an intermediate state, the Tibetans just made that up. But there are actually some indications in the early sutras that there could be some time in between the moment of death in this lifetime and the moment of re-existence. Okay, now re-existence, let's just say for convenience that we're talking about conception. It wouldn't be rebirth immediately, usually. We'd need some time in the womb, at least for a human rebirth. Now here's where it gets complicated because we don't know what kind of rebirth the person is taking. We know that the lifespan of insects, for example, is very short. A mosquito, it's 24 hours. So if we're tempted to kill a mosquito, why not just wait? They're going to die in 24 hours anyway. So why create the bad karma of taking the life of a sentient being? Just let them die naturally, right? So, but in general, the Tibetans talk in terms of a 49 possible intermediate state called the bardo. Bardo literally means intermediate state. Bar means in between. Okay, and they also, the texts actually describe a series of 7 intermediate states where the person who has died takes a bardo existence. It's even conceived of as a bardo rebirth. In other words, the person takes a kind of formless body that would indicate the next existence. So, for example, if the bardo were going to be a human being, the bardo would take, although it's invisible, but it would have this sort of shape of a human being. So, the idea is that if by 7 days the person has not found an appropriate body according to their karma and the quality of their mind states, then they will take a second bardo body. If at the 14th day they still haven't found an appropriate rebirth, they'll take another bardo body. And this can go on 7 times, but that's the limit. By the 49th day, they must take a birth, a re-existence, another birth, or another conception. So now, that 49 days will probably only be achieved by someone who has practiced a lot of meditation. So this is why we see more elaborate funerals for people who are renowned for their good meditation practice. If someone has practiced very well, then there's a possibility that they would actually last that long in the body, in the bardo. They would be able to direct their consciousness to the optimum rebirth and even possibly achieve liberation or awakening. For the most part, for most of us, it would probably be only 1 or 2 or 3 days. And most people don't have enough control of the mind to direct the consciousness any longer than that. We can see this when we sit down to meditate. Even keeping our concentration for 10 minutes is quite a challenge, right? For most of us. And this is why we need to practice meditation more. We need to learn to understand our minds and learn how to tame the wild monkey mind, right? So, now, what about the idea of giving doing some kinds of ceremonies or giving dana on behalf of the dying person. How does this work really? It's a big question. Even among the Buddhists, there are many disputes. I mean, in a friendly way, debates about what is the nature of this kind of dedication of merit, for example. Because we know that the deeds that you do will ripen on you. The consequences of your actions will be experienced by you, either in this lifetime, the next lifetime, or lifetimes after that. Okay? Same for me. Whatever actions I do, I will experience the consequences, either in this lifetime, or in the next lifetime, or in lifetimes after that. This is how the texts read. Right? Now, in the case of some actions, you can see that they ripen instantly. I've been calling this instant karma. For example, one time I was in the parking lot at school, and I saw a parking space, and I was just turning into the parking space when a student came from the other direction and took my parking space and instantly crashed into a pole. Oh, so sad. But it was sort of like instant karma, yeah? Don't steal the nun's parking spot. I felt very bad for him because look at the consequences. He's going to have to deal with the insurance. He's going to have to deal with the repairs. And it was for a parking spot. Was it worth it? We won't talk about the karma. I don't know the karma of stealing a parking spot. But anyway, so sometimes we talk in terms of instant karma. Sometimes even if we have an unkind thought, we stub our toe. Have you ever had that experience? And sometimes it seems like it's speeding. The ripening of our karma seems to be speeding up. So the Tibetans have a really sort of philosophical way of thinking about this. They believe that whatever misfortunes we experience are the result of our karma ripening, and they rejoice. So if they catch cold, they'll think, oh, shoo, got rid of that one, or something like that. And when an old woman up in the mountains, she's dressed in animal skins. But she came up and she said, what happened to your arm? And I said, I got bitten by a snake. And she said, oh, wow, you got rid of lots of bad karma, didn't you? Yeah, she's completely illiterate, but she understands the law of cause and effect perfectly. So instead of thinking when we catch a cold, oh, poor me, my friend shouldn't have kept me out so late last night, right? It's so convenient to blame someone else. No, we think, well, everything that happens to us has a cause, right? And maybe this cold that I caught is because I've been doing prostrations intensively, and I've gotten rid of a bunch of bad karma, and now I just have to have a cold. Great, right? So it completely changes our attitude toward life and the idea of making life meaningful. I think this is one of the most important key points, which you mentioned earlier, that at the moment in the last days, or even the last years of life, a lot of people are troubled by a feeling of uselessness. I think it also accounts for why some people are choosing to terminate their life, artificially terminate their life, because they feel that their life has no meaning and that they're just a burden to their families. It's a big question. It's now legal in several countries and also in several states in the United States. But for the Buddhists, it would be unfortunate to choose termination of life, because if we have meaning in our life and can create dharma, good deeds, practice dharma and create good deeds, then we should try to do that. So, in terms of this idea of transferring merit, the best way I think we can think about this is that even though I can't literally transfer my good deeds to Emma, nor can she transfer her good deeds to me, still we can create an atmosphere that will enable someone's good deeds to ripen. Right? We create a wholesome atmosphere. Like today, we were doing a memorial service, and Bante was talking about giving dana and sending thoughts of love and creating a wholesome atmosphere for the person. And in that atmosphere, it's possible for that person's good deeds to ripen in a positive way that can affect a positive rebirth. And from what I've learned, it also means that the deeds of our close ones, especially our family members, are especially important. They used to say, eating from the same pot. I don't know if you have this expression in Chinese, but they say those who eat from a common pot. In other words, you hold your resources in common. And the meritorious deeds done by people in that circle, your parents, your children, and your siblings, whoever is sort of connected economically, are especially effective in creating merit on behalf of the other person. And this merit then has the effect of encouraging the good ripening of those deeds for the deceased. That's my understanding.
咁我哋頭先聽到阿 Venerable 咧就話佢嘅隻手啊嚇係被蛇咬咗，所以變成咁樣啦。依家比較皺皮啲嚇，但係 Venerable 就甚至係藏傳嘅佛教徒，佢可以咁樣去睇話又燒咗個業障啦嚇。但係喺香港其實我哋都有咁嘅講法，依家有病咪業障咯。但係佢講呢句説話出嚟嘅有少少嘅消極嘅。有少少怨氣嘅感覺啊嚇！頭先我提起呢一位老人家叫我打教佢嗰個，佢就會講啦，就係我一生人咁善良，我又冇害人，又冇殺人，點解我有呢個病？佢冇辦法接受。如果我同佢講，依家你燒緊業障啊，你要好好地捱啊，你話佢陣間你走係咪？我唔想聽呢啲説話。咁真係呢一個嘅咁樣嘅明白。接受呢一個所謂嘅業障，真正經歷緊嗰樣病嘅時候，痛緊嘅時候，辛苦嘅時候，甚至你瞓喺張床要綁住你唔俾你喐嘅時候，燒緊業障咁即係要幾大嘅能耐，甚至你有幾大嘅修持當然有福嘅人咧，自然喺身邊咧會出現有人係支持佢，係提醒佢。咁所以你譬如話呢位婆婆係啊，你一生人依家80幾歲，呢個第一次大病喎。咁我哋就將佢嘅呢個角度焦點咧移到去話你一生人係咪上天對你不薄啊？係咪上天都好眷顧你啊？你感唔感恩啊？咁佢就話我感恩啊。咁你啲仔女乖唔乖？我好乖啊，好多謝啊，我冇乜遺憾啦，係嘛？咁所以個角度本係從一個覺得自己好得。要經歷緊呢個病啦，淨係絕症 cancer 嘅時候咧，轉一轉移，原來我一生人係好滿足㗎。
當我哋遇到一個即將往生嘅人嘅時候，其實好多時佢哋未必係一個好清醒嘅狀態。咁但係當我哋講好多説話，我哋同佢講道謝、道別、道愛、道謝咁樣。我成日都好喺度諗，究竟佢哋係咪明白同埋？我哋講嘅嘢係咪佢哋真係收到咧？又對佢哋嘅往生係有冇幫助咧？
多謝你嘅問題啊！好快講一講，其實係我當佢收到㗎。即使佢已經係昏迷咗一段時間，冇反應俾你㗎啦但係真係冇反應咩？你留意翻佢嘅眼皮有時會震一震嘅，有啲眼淚花喺度嘅你輕輕握佢嘅手啊！佢會俾啲咁多嘅回應俾你㗎。更加我試過，至少我依家腦海中記住嘅有3個啦。有一個小朋友已經好多年係植物人咁㗎啦。咁佢係醫生話要放棄㗎啦。咁好啦，咁放棄阿媽爸爸就好焦急唔知要放手會唔會害咗佢？會唔會係殺生咧？佢如果仲有業要受，我會咁樣就放棄佢，係咪害咗佢咧？好多呢一啲嘅諗法嘅。咁唔緊要啊，我總之同佢講嘢咯感恩媽媽係咪啊？感恩爸爸嘅照顧，等等呢啲4度講晒㗎啦。哇！不可思議， 本來係眯埋眼睛嘅，已經長時間冇反應，佢可以張開個眼睛望一望你。然後第二日咧開始發高燒啦，因為媽媽爸爸就話：如果你自己決定你想走，呢幾年實在太辛苦啦，事事都好反覆，你可以自己揸主意，為你自己生命決定。佢第二日就發燒喎，阿媽就話：不如醫咗先算啦。其實係咪一個因緣啊？誒好啦，隨其自然。如果佢真係要走，慢慢由得佢走。咁所以媽媽後來係接受嘅，好快啊，2日就離開啦。如果你要維持啊，用個機啊，可以維持多2年啊。咁再嚟咧就係已經係去到臨尾，今日我哋實習嘅呢一個個案，呢個病人咧其實已經嗰一日嘅下晝已經走咗啦。咁所以但係佢嗰反應係點啊？嗰個太太不斷拉埋去，你要留啊，你要醒啊咁樣挨過去。你知唔知一個人走嘅時候4大分散，地水火風，佢心理好醉啊，好辛苦，你仲挨埋佢，仲喺度黏啊、猜啊咁樣嘅時候咧，哇！佢點樣嘅反應啊？我相信大家有啲病人啊今日嘅病人咧，佢係點啊？推走佢，佢係咁樣去表現自己同埋我哋同佢講嘅嘢，佢其實係收到，然後咧慢慢平穩落嚟。你睇到佢個呼吸慢慢平穩落嚟，所以總結一句啦，簡單回應呢一個朋友咧，就係當佢聽到，佢係收到。
剛才講嘅我有個 case 咧，就係有個人佢新加坡人，咁佢瞓喺張床，咁佢話你叫嗰人帶個仔去食嘢，咁但係個仔其實唔係喺旁邊嚟㗎嘛，咁當時你點處理？
咁我就接受，我冇馬上咧就矯正佢嘅，我就好，唔使擔心，依家我幫你跟進下嚇，咁所以就安心咗咯，呢件事就了咗啦，唔好馬上話阿仔唔喺度啊，但係你再同佢傾落去咧，你記唔記得阿仔依家喺邊啊？咁佢諗話，阿媽帶咗佢翻新加坡。咁9月又要開學啦，你想唔想見阿仔啊？唔想啊，因為佢要開學啦。其實有少少恍惚嘅，因為喺個差唔多9個字嘅探訪過程咧，開始嘅時候你問佢想唔想見，佢想見，想唔想阿媽佢哋過嚟上？但係咧轉頭咧再問佢咧，佢就又要洗頭啦。所以唔好咁快去落一個定論，慢慢咧將嗰個圖啊砌埋一齊，肯定清楚問多一次，就係咁。
我想問多少少嘅，因為就我阿媽係腦退化嘅，咁佢咧其實我阿婆過咗身10年㗎啦，但係佢可以話佢尋日至見過佢，或者同佢一齊食飯，咁同佢講話過咗身啦咁佢就自己會好內疚咯，就覺得點解佢過咗身我唔知嘅，其實佢唔記得啊嘛，咁其實係咪應該同佢直接咁講定係點樣咧？有時都唔知係。
其實你有講嘛？呢個本來過咗身，有講嘅。
我俾一張相嚟睇先嘅，我話嗱，你睇下佢都好老啦，都成90幾歲，咁我話佢都過咗身，你都幾多歲啦咁講，咁跟住佢就跟住就有啲喊咁樣。
如果佢喊咧，我哋都可以了解翻，佢係話自己點解會唔知啊？或者佢係真係唔捨得佢咁我哋要認同佢呢一個感受。同時間，我哋可以轉一轉佢嘅呢個焦點，與其係唔捨得啊，或者係傷心啊，覺得自己冇做到啲乜嘢咧，當下我哋可以鼓勵佢。咁你可以為佢做啲乜嘢㗎？如果佢已經係比較年紀大或者做唔到乜嘢咧，咁如果你係信主嘅，咁求天主照顧下佢咯。你係信佛嘅，你為佢念佛咯。咁呢個就係佢多少咧可以做到嘅嘢咯。
好，唔該。父母喪生嗰陣時咧，因為年輕同埋未學佛，同埋因為係車禍，屍體好快就送咗去殮房，同埋知道嗰陣時係電話通知嘅，真係死嗰陣時唔在佢身邊嘅。咁唔係即刻可以去殮房睇，仲要等第2日至可以去睇。咁樣可以做咩幫佢哋補救咧？而家聽到覺得冇得睇個屍體。 乜都冇得同佢講，覺得好慘啊！兩個父母而家唔知點樣。
我記得楊師傅有講過嚇，如果你話為我哋嘅親人啦，第一就係可以同佢受入呢個幽冥界。幽冥界係幫我哋嘅親人亡者嚇做呢一個對佢係好好嘅。咁當然你話做呢一樣嘢嘅時候，一定有聽聞佛法嘅，法師一定會開示嘅。第二咧，其實大家如果仲唔開地藏經咧，有冇睇到一個 part 咧，就係話如果你年紀細細嗰陣時咧，飲緊奶嘅時候啊，或者係媽媽就已經唔喺度啦，係咪啊？或者係你嘅兄弟姊妹已經係分開咗，佢死咗好耐㗎啦。咁如果你依家掛念佢，你想要即係或者同佢有翻啲 connection 嘅時候咧，其實地藏經可以幫到我哋嘅。地藏經入邊有講到好清楚，你試下。
I think in several of these cases, there's a theme of some sort of feeling of regret, or even a feeling of guilt around the passing of our parents. And while it's really true that our parents are so important for us, without them we wouldn't be here, and we do need to remember their kindness. At the same time, death is a natural thing. And it's not a failure. It's not anyone's fault. This is important to remember. So I think as Dharma practitioners, or even as an ordinary person, whether you identify as a Buddhist or not, it's important to try to let go of feelings of inadequacy, that we didn't handle it well enough, that we weren't a good enough daughter or son. That we could have done more, or that, worst of all, that we did it badly. Because these kinds of feelings of regret, of course we cannot prevent sadness, that's normal, that's natural. But these other feelings I think we can handle perhaps a bit more maturely by thinking that a child bears no guilt for the death of their parents. There's no way that you were responsible for that. And so there are many practices, on the other hand, that we can do to help our parents, especially because of this family circle that we talked about, eating from the same pot. We have a close karmic connection. Therefore, the good deeds that we do can help to ripen the good deeds of our parents, wherever they may be. Now, for sure, they've taken another existence by now. And we have no way, except for doing some really good meditation. We really don't have access to that information. But it doesn't really matter that much, because wherever they are, if we do good deeds, I mean actions of body, speech, and mind, and this can include all the 6 perfections, right? The generosity and the ethics, keeping good ethics and patience and all of these things, perseverance in our practice, and then our meditation, and also the accumulation of wisdom. Whatever we do, our study and meditation and service in particular is going to benefit our parents. So letting go of these feelings of guilt, there's no reason in the Buddhist view, there's absolutely no reason to carry around those feelings of guilt. Past is past, it's over, right? We no longer need to carry that. This, for Buddhists, actually, because of the importance of living in the present moment, there's a constant reminder, there's a wisdom that really the past is over. And what matters right now is the present, because that's our preparation for the future. Okay? So that's how we can help our parents. Yeah, and also a good way to offset these feelings of guilt or inadequacy is to rejoice in our good deeds, instead of always feeling bad about what we didn't do right or what we did wrong. Why not instead rejoice in the good deeds that we do? Now, it doesn't mean to become proud. Look at me, I gave generosity to the poor. No, but inside our own mind to think, I did a good thing, and feel happy about that. This is really important, because in order to be a good practitioner, and especially to serve others, we need to be in a healthy, happy state of mind. How can we go into the hospitals if we ourselves are dragged down by our own feelings of guilt and sadness, right? We need to try to let go of those unhappy feelings and get back into the present moment, do our best with it, right?
咁我個時間非常差唔多啦嚇，我只係補充一句咧，頭先講 Venerable 啱啱講嘅呢個 regret 啊，我記得楊師傅一句精句啊嚇，就係內疚不如補救啊。
Also, of course, there are these repentance practices that we can do. I think the Chinese do this best. Right? It's really great. You know, they spend all day at it. Sometimes they spend a whole week. Right? So if you really want to deal with that, you could also go join one of those programs. Very good, very good. Another thing is doing prostrations. You know, in the Tibetan tradition, they do 100,000 prostrations. It purifies our unwholesome deeds of the past. There are many practices the Buddhists have, but we can do those.
咁呢個係楊師傅寫嘅書嚇，病向小中醫，好多人中意呢本，因為咧佢哋睇到嘅咧就係中醫啊。但係其實係病緊嘅時候點樣可以笑住咁樣去醫咧嚇？咁第二本其實係心歡就是最好的道別，嗰一本咧就攞到金月獎嘅金獎嘅嚇。咁第三本咧就係呢個生死奧秘。香港應該冇得賣，就喺中心，我哋大覺福行中心，我哋喺台灣嗰邊運過嚟嘅，咁大家可以去上中心啦。咁另外一 set 書咧，我好推薦大家嘅，有冇睇過呢本啊？其實佢係一 set 咧4本嘅，就係陳曉蕾女士咧寫嘅《死在香港見棺材》大家女士啊，係咪啊？但係呢本書入邊好多資料啊，好詳細。仲有咧就係我記得咧第4本咧就係叫平安紙啊。係入邊其實係講好多我哋點樣可以準備自己，可以寫定個平安紙啦，可以同我哋嘅屋企人講定個再見，講定個多謝等等嘅。一 set 4本咧係好值得大家去睇嘅。OK， 咁當然大家如果頭先都有人問咧，就係話點樣可以邊學佛咧，同埋邊修行嘅。咁你有呢個因緣咧，你要好珍惜嚇。呢個地方咧，其實係一個好地方。學法中心係點解啊？因為佢好 down to earth， 好地道、好道地嘅呢一個地方，可以不但止學佛，仲可以咧強調呢個禪修行嘅，所以大家好好地護持呢個地方，好嗎？我度好感恩今日有呢個因緣咧，同大家做一個分享。我哋好感恩今日幫手帶呢個 workshop 嘅我哋嘅幾位梁老師啦，我哋3位嘅chaplain。Emily、Wendy 同埋 Vicky， 咁在座都有好多我哋醫院嘅心靈大使啊嚇，好開心見到佢哋。好都感恩我哋嘅傳譯員 Natalie 嚇 ，Thank you very much，
Well, heartfelt appreciation to Venerable Truyền灯. It's been a fascinating dialogue. And I think I will need to improve my Chinese so I can read these books. Thank you so much for everything. And for everyone here at the center who's been so kind to put I must, of course, acknowledge Therese, who's had this concept in mind a year ago and didn't give up. She's determined to organize this program and did it so well with the help of so many kind friends. And on behalf of Venerable Dhamajoti, our host, who kindly opens up this place for Dharma events, regardless of which Buddhist tradition it is, and without cost, I must say that this is a great kindness. So he would like to present Venerable Truyền灯with this book, which is Abhidharma Doctrines and Controversies on Perception. We've been talking about the importance of perception, knowing the mind, and the process of perception. So I'd like to present this book on his behalf. Whenever we do some virtue, some merit, some good practice, we like to share the benefit of our practice. So since it's been a dialogue, I'd like to request Venerable Truyền灯to bless us with a dedication of merit, and then I'll do a short dedication in Tibetan.
願以此功德，普及於一切，眾生於我等， 皆共成佛道。
皆共成佛道。
阿弥陀佛。Okay, now in Tibetan. Gewadi nyududa lama sangi dugune doa chika malupa ki sana by virtue of the merit that we have accumulated, may we achieve the state of perfect awakening in order to liberate all living beings from suffering, leaving not one behind. Thank you.